we're going to record this session, and we recorded yesterday's session. And up at the top of this mural, there's a old reel-to-reel tape that'll take you to the playlist of our dialogues, and we can continue to build that so that we have a record both with the mural, but then we've also got a recording of the session so that other people can jump on board really quick. Or if you wanted just to listen to your amazing voice and picture, you can do that too. And for me, walking into a room without music is like walking into a room without furniture, even if it's this lovely techno stuff. So I'll be doing this royalty-free music, so you can't play hits. Give us about 3 more minutes to explore and put Post-it notes up there and just figure out who was and is in the room. I love how people are getting creative on how they're posting things up there, especially on the timelines. All right, so Rachel, welcome back. We're doing the mural thing, so the link is in the chat. And what we're going to do next is I'm going to do a quick kind of overview of the process today. And then Tom's going to give a welcome and we'll do an initial sounding. But what the process is, it's what I call practical creativity. This is the first part of a longer practical creativity process. And it's divergent thinking and convergent thinking. So we're going to spend some time just getting ideas on the table. It's said that if you want to have a good idea, have lots of ideas to start with. And that's where we're starting. We're starting with a dialogue, and Mural is an excellent way to capture this work, and it's ongoing. This is asynchronous, so you can go back to it, add, take away. So we're going to do some questions. You'll post your responses to questions up on the board, and then we'll do some convergent thinking by what we call clump and cluster, find themes and connections, that part of it. And we just go back and forth between divergent thinking and convergent thinking. And that's what this Mural board will help us through that process. That's why we're using it. So with that, I want, Tom, could you give us a little bit more of a welcome and what your hope is for this process?
I probably can do that. I'm glad you're all here. Yesterday was certainly a good process, and I'm really thrilled at who could be here today. And there's a whole bunch of people who couldn't. A bunch of people are at ASTM, so we lost some folks to that. But when I did the when to meet, these were the days that really worked for people, and we offered 2 sessions so that everybody who responded could participate. So, Rachel, I'm especially glad we made this work for you. So you were the tough one to fit in there. So this is great. For me, the outcome I'm looking for is essential questions. I don't have the answers. I know what I would do about all this stuff, but that's not the point. The point is what will we do about it? And so by the end of today, what I'm hoping for is that we finish today with some questions that we can ponder. And then when we meet at ACT, Friday at 1:30 to 3 o'clock, we have an hour and a half and a room. We are officially sanctioned. And on Saturday, 1:30 to 3 o'clock, we have a room. And so in that time period, it's all these specialty groups, special interest groups that are meeting. I'm pretty thrilled about this. So we have essentially 3 hours. Some of us may have to be someplace else at times, but what we want to do is get everybody thinking, get there, and then really have a chance to kind of take this a step further. One of the things that I'm going to recommend to people for those sessions is they bring their computer, because we can all sit at tables around the room and talk in real time, but be looking at the mural as we're working it. So we're gonna do a little bit of hybrid as we work together on this process. So the outcome is for us to talk, to dream, to come up with questions, and kind of build some momentum so that something will happen at some point about supporting trainers. And where I start with all this is this question: if almost all of the accidents and all of fatalities are human error, then what can ACT do to support trainers to raise the bar up the game so that we can lower the human error showing up in other places? So obviously it's a more complex system than that. But so anyhow, today's about ending up with some questions. I think the answers will show up in time. How's that, John?
Good. You want to jump into a little sounding exercise?
Yep. Can you drag us up to the name tag, to the sounding?
I would love to do that.
Thank you, brother. No, I can't see it again. All I see is an orange screen.
Is anybody else seeing everybody else is seeing it? It's basically your sounding tag. Yeah.
So essentially, a sounding is a device that I use. Essentially, it's a tool for voice. A sounding is that we're going to speak one at a time. You choose when you want to go. We don't force anybody to speak, but when you do speak, you have about a minute. And basically, who you are, the program you're from, the job that you do, and why you've joined this process, why you've come together for this. So it's, it's pretty simple. And this is, it's a couple sentences, not a chapter or a book. We want to keep it fairly short and scripted, but just give us your elevator pitch, couple of minutes about who you are and why you're here. In order to do this, on the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see something called a little smiley face and something called reactions. If you click on reactions, you should see a little thing that says raise your hand. If you look at my screen, you'll see my hand up in the upper left corner. When you raise your hand, it will pull you to the upper left of my screen, and then I'll know who's ready next. I don't want to choose people unless they volunteered, but I will take you in the order that I see you on your screen. So with that, let's shoot into a sounding. It might take us 10 minutes, but my belief is that the connections are really valuable, and it's a great chance to kind of limber up all of our voices. So who would like to do a sounding first? There we go. Hi, Chris. Up, you're muted. I can't hear Chris. Can anybody? No? Okay. It's like you yesterday, John. I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
lag on my computer, but
Was it?
Chris, you may want to click on the caret next to the microphone to see which, there you go.
How's that go? Great. Again, Chris Dambois. I work for High Five Adventure Learning Center out of Brattleboro, Vermont. I'm the director of training and team development. So I manage all of our internal PVM trainers who are delivering both custom and open enrollment training, as well as other programs, direct service programs for our constituents. The reason I wanted to join this process was to sort of understand both what ACCT might be thinking about in terms of trainer verification, certification, credentialing, and also what the folks doing similar work to what I do, what they think about this process as it unfolds. So it's gonna impact the work I do and the people I manage. So I'm done.
Thanks, Chris. Alex?
Yep. So my name is Alex Moore, and I work for Synago over in Portland, Oregon. And my position is Director of Training for Synago. So I manage the trainers that we have, as well as go out and do training myself. And then why I joined this circle, because I was here yesterday and the conversation was exciting and rich, and I just can't get enough of Tom. So here I am. Oh, and I also heard that Dick was going to be here today. So very excited. Looking forward to good conversations. Hey, everybody.
Thanks. John Losey.
Hi, my name is John Losey, and I cut my teeth in the adventure experiential education world, working camps starting in 1992. But I moved past that in 2007 and started doing corporate work inside a large corporate university, and then my own consulting, where I basically guide people and groups to the next best step in growth and sustainability. And so that involves I did a lot of competency mapping for leadership and professional skills, enterprise-wide work with coaching and with retention and with engagement. So two years ago, when all this hit, I'd been in the virtual world for about 10 years before that. So I jumped back in, renewed a lot of really great relationships in the experiential world, and now I'm helping Tom with this process. So I'm glad to be here.
And my conference. John kept our conference, our local conference, going for the last 2 years when we went virtual. So the only thing that kept us going. So thank you, John, for that.
My pleasure.
Who's up? Who's next? Raise your hand. Hi, Rachel. You're up.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel. I'm the Director of Training and Consulting at Signature Research. I am here because I really care about training and I really care about this industry and I really care about us walking the talk that we preach and sharing and all of that good stuff.
Oh, understated, but understood. Thanks, Rachel. You do a lot. You're great. You see you all the time at ACT, really showing your passion. Thank you. Who's up? Raise that virtual hand. Get a couple of them up there. Hi, Phil.
Hey Tom, hey all. Phil Brown. I'm a trainer at High Five Adventure. I'm also a podcast host, also for High Five. There's the podcast. Check it out. And the reason I'm here is because I'm incredibly passionate about this work. I think, like most people who are probably here, I think it's important work, and I think it's also very important to be in the room and be in the conversation around all things training. So I try to be as many things as I can related to training. So here I am.
Thank you. Jane, you're up.
Hi, I'm Jane Jeffries. I'm the director of a challenge course here in Des Moines, Iowa, and I'm just here to learn. I just try to show up to conversations and like to hear what's going on.
Thanks, Jane. Heather.
Okay, we're gonna see if this works. It's like watching crazy TV sometimes with my camera. I'm Heather Brooks, the program manager at ACCT. I come from a background of in-house training before ACCT, but here I do all the program stuff, which includes kind of training, more long presentations in the realm of like ICE prep and OR training and stuff. But I joined this circle to hear what is going on, hear the needs of folks, and kind of just be a part of the conversation.
Good. Thank you. Kevin.
Hey everybody, it's good to see you all. My name is Kevin. I work with Synergo right alongside Alex. Excited to be here today. Was a part of the conversation yesterday. Really just looking forward to kind of collaborating with other professionals in the industry. Kind of going off of what Chris said earlier. Really looking forward to kind of hearing perspectives from other trainers and the other needs that are out there. So yeah, just happy to keep the conversation going and excited to see a lot of you in Portland next week. So yeah.
Nice. Thank you. Paul, you're up. Can't hear you, Paul. You got something going on.
Yeah.
Maybe try muting yourself and unmuting again. I don't know. John, you have any ideas?
Yeah, try now, Paul. Make sure if you click on the little caret next to your microphone and make sure that the right headset is selected. The little up arrow next to the microphone. And then the really high-tech solution is jiggle the wire. Not with us yet. Let's move to Rachel, and then we'll see if Paul can troubleshoot.
There we go.
I feel a lot of pressure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel Murray. I work for YMCA of the North, based out of the Twin Cities, Minnesota, Wisconsin. And in my position, I'm essentially overseeing the challenge course operations for 10 different camps in our association, including training. And I'm here again today, was here yesterday, just to be tapped into the conversation and add my perspective. And in my career, I have done 3 level 2 trainings. The first with Chris when you were at PA, the second with Phil. So nice to see you both.
Cool. All right.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go, Paul.
Too many microphone options. So I'm Paul Bland. I work at Signature Research with Rachel. I'm the professional services manager I oversee our open enrollment trainings, our online trainings. I conduct a variety of different trainings. Also have taken on operations manuals and some consulting and program reviews. I'm here because the industry is changing and growing, and I'm curious where we're going and curious about what people's thoughts are around trainings as we continue to move forward.
Thanks, Paul. Mr. Hammond.
Yes, sir. Dick Hammond. My wife and I own a company called Leadership on the Move. We are a PDM for the ACCT and one of the few, like Tom, that does nothing but training. Unofficially, before ACCT was even started, I've been doing this since 1992 and ditto what everybody else been saying. The industry is changing. Training needs are changing, and just want to be part of the conversation and listen in and glean wisdom from all those who are present and willing to share. And hopefully we can move forward with a better industry. Not that there's anything wrong with it right now. It's just we all need to be better at what we're doing. With the exception of Tom, we know nobody is perfect, but we all need to become better at what we're doing. So I appreciate being part of the conversation. Thank you.
But Dick, I've made all the mistakes twice. So cool. All right. Is that everybody? Then John?
Yeah. Do you want to do some warm-up questions or you want to go straight to the 5?
I think straight to the 5.
We can go straight to the 5 because you asked. So I'm going to take control of all these things and we're going to go to the 5 questions. And for the sake of the recording, I'm going to share the screen while I'm giving you the little rundown here. So what we found is that there's 5 questions that are really good to start with. And what we want you to do in just a minute, we're going to give you probably about 15 minutes to start with, and want you to take a look at these 5 questions and give a response. 1 response per sticky note, and be sure you put your name on it. So here's some of the questions we're going to look at. We're going to do, here's a big one. What is training? What's your definition of training? What does it look like? So just answer that best you can. And again, 1 idea, you might have 5 ideas of what training is, 5 different sticky notes. One of the things you notice is that there's little stars or check marks or things. What you can do after we've had a chance to answer all the questions, you can come back, put a little icon there on ones that you agree with, or maybe you have a question about, you can do that. The icon is right over here. The star allows you to take a look at the icons and choose some fun ones. Next question is, what does an effective trainer look like? And the idea is, picture in your head, what behaviors are they displaying? What does that look like? So we can get to the behaviors of a trainer. But again, answer it any way that it hits you or it sparks you. Of course, we've got to talk about hot topics. What's like the burning question in your world right now? And after hot topics, we'll talk about challenges. What are the big challenges you face, whether it's as a trainer or as a business, whatever it is. Lastly, we're talking about needs. And one benefit that you guys have is you can use yesterday's Post-it notes. You can ignore them. I suggest you ignore them at first, but you can also use them to prompt your thinking. And what I'd love for you guys to do is, yes, and if it's repetitive, great, put it down. That just adds volume to it. If it's something that you want to piggyback on or add to, do that. But the idea is to get as many ideas up here as possible. So do you guys kind of get the 5 questions and what we're doing here? You're released, so you can start whenever you want. I'll probably talk for a little bit. We'll put the techno music on. Now is a great time. If you need to stand up, you need to refill your preferred hot beverage, you can do that. But I'm going to put about 15 minutes on the timer, and we'll check in to see if we're done with this or not. So let's go to it. So Tom, I'm unlocking all of yesterday's so that we can, everything will be, when we go to the next phase, everything will be up for grabs as far as clumping and clustering. So because we are from the West, we tend to think in left to right. I want to encourage you to switch over and go right to left so that you put some good time into what you need and what challenges you face as well. Again, one thought per sticky note, and be sure to put your name on it. if you feel yourself slowing down, take a look around and maybe put some agreement or some icon on the ones that really strike you, and allow yourself to be prompted by other people's notes to generate some more. All right, we got another minute and a half or so. So make sure that you're looking around, see if you can't get a couple more sticky notes up there. And is there a question that you haven't given much attention to? Dive in, get a few more things. And also feel free to respond or ask questions about the Post-it notes that you see up there. All right. Anybody like want more time? Are we ready to move on? Are we good? Give me a thumbs up if we're ready to move forward. Dick's still going. And Dick is okay. Hold on a minute here. Let's see. Remove spotlight there. All right, we'll give you another couple minutes. And while if somebody else is done, let's give some icons up there. Let's show some interaction and feedback on ones that you like. And if you've got a question on one, the names are on those ones so that you can ask that person a question if you want clarification. What do you mean by that? And if they're not in the room, we'll just pretend that they are. You good, Dick? Good to see. So here's what's next. And I'm gonna take control for a little bit, but after I release you guys, feel free to go back and either continue the process or jump into this, what we call clump and cluster. So everybody seeing clump and cluster there? Now what this is we're gonna go back up to all those questions and all those sticky notes. And you're going to see if you can't find commonalities. So you might go up and let's go up to the just any of these. What you're going to do is, let's say you find one that you want to create a clump out of. And so I don't mess up anybody else's, I'll do mine. Let me share my screen so it makes sense. So you're going to come up here and you right click on a sticky note and duplicate. We don't want you to move the original notes, so duplicate the notes, and then you can bring them down and you can start a box. I've purposely blocked off yesterday's boxes because we'll take a look at those later, but I want you guys to do this fresh. What connections are you making? And you can resize the note, and then go up and find another one that you think is like it, duplicate it, and you can bring it down. Now, I don't even know if these are related. I just picked them. And this is going to take some conversation, because you might see these two in here and say, all right, John, what do you see the connections between training as a process of building capacity and how do you keep training affordable? What's your connection there? And we start talking, we find the connections, and you can put notes in multiple boxes. Try not to put the same note over and over again in the same box. But that's this process of clumping and clustering. And want to encourage you guys, we're going to spend some time doing this, and you're going to start to see, don't try and name the boxes yet. Just try and make connections, clump them together, cluster them together, and we'll see what arises from this. Any questions about what this part of the process is? This is that kind of convergent. We're taking all these wonderful ideas and just trying to make connections. So go ahead. We'll give you guys another 15 minutes. I'll stop sharing. I'll get rid of these ones that I made. And you're all released. You're all ready to go. This is a good time to talk. Ask questions. And a lot of times it just starts by moving something down there.
One of the things we can chat about too in real time is, we get to talk now, is, you can even propose a category if you're looking at stuff up there. Maybe we'll try this a little differently than yesterday. What kind of, as you look at all the stuff up there, what kind of category do you kind of, it's like, oh, I've seen these 6 things and I think this is a category. Some of the areas that we're looking at. But the whole point here is to stimulate a dialogue between us. We do notice that the mural tends to take us we're a little quieter, but our fingers are busy.
Yeah. There's a premise in creativity and innovation that is, you think it, you say it, and you write it. And that just helps. It helps everybody get online. It also helps solidify something in your brain. So if you think about that, you say, hey, I noticed this one. Here's a great definition. This is what it is. Let's put it down in a box. Who sees something else that belongs with that?
I'm noticing under both challenges and needs, there's some multiple dialogues about staff availability.
Yeah. Can you move those down into 14, duplicate them and move them into 14, box 14?
I'm going to put some black tags in these boxes so that when we feel like we've got a name for these things, there's a tag right there that we can put the name in for the category. If you have an idea of what your category is, right there.
And the challenge here is resist creating the category before you make the connections, because sometimes that blocks off some really interesting connections. We'll get to that. That's coming down there, but let's just see. And thank you for adding those boxes, Tom, so that we can put it in later. But when you don't categorize first, sometimes you discover really interesting connections that other people wouldn't make. So that's the challenge to start off with. Are you guys losing the tags behind the hidden
Yes.
ones?
I just lost mine. Like,
Yeah.
what just happened?
Let me.
Oh, over there. Sorry.
See if this helps. If you lose behind there, just go back up and duplicate it again. Find one of your favorite sticky notes up there and see if it fits in a cluster that we're creating, or does it deserve its own cluster? Oh, don't feel pressure to fill in every box. Just saying.
You know, and maybe what we might move to at this point is just really kind of an open dialogue, kind of using our voices and just, you know, just kind of what are you seeing for categories? There's so many up there. I'm going cross-eyed trying to read them all and trying to make sense of them. But overall, whether it's looking at the post-its that are up there or just your own thoughts, what are the bigger buckets that we think that we're considering or looking at here?
Yeah. And feel free to create new sticky notes in those boxes that maybe summarize your thinking of what you saw up there.
This is one of the things we're looking at what we wrote and other people wrote. It kind of, I get kind of mesmerized by the stuff. Sometimes it's good just to close my eyes and what are my own thoughts on this?
I'll just throw out an observation I have from yesterday today. If it spurs conversation. One of the things that I noticed a lot yesterday and again today is the lack of staffing. And I didn't make the connection or the addition until I saw Phil's comment about losing experienced professionals and not bringing in more of a new generation. So I feel like it's a twofold, not bringing in and the loss of others.
Did you guys experience a lot of loss of talent over the pandemic where people moved to other industries, other career paths?
I think it's beyond like not just people that we're aware of leaving, but it's also when it comes to hiring, just seeing the lack of experience in some of the application. Just it's very different than it was 10 years ago. I think 10 years ago, you were getting people who are 10 plus years of experience, but good luck trying to find that now if you're searching. They've already got jobs. They're already amongst us. They're not looking for work. So it changes the mindset of how we even hire.
Which makes the training component even that much more important.
I don't know if others are experiencing a lack of funding for training. Like we used to get supports that like the state would have grants to help with fund the training. The clients I'm working with are all under-resourced, severely under-resourced and low in staff to even take the time to invest in that.
I wonder if there's other industries that have transferable talent and skills that we're not tapping into. like doing a brainstorm around where else are these people hiding that could just knock this out of the park?
I think it's also a scaling issue. Prior to the pandemic, there was both money available, people available, and programs grew really large. And then when that blew up, for lack of a better term, on the back end, program managers didn't scale back down again. There's still the same expectation of delivery, clients served, headcount, whatever it is, your metric is. And I think our client programs need to rethink what they're actually capable of doing still.
I also
Yeah.
wonder as well what we can do as trainers. I put this in one of the bubbles around. I just think that the initial trainings that we often do are just not enough. Now, granted, like the money is how trying to persuade a client to do 2 days is hard enough, let alone say, well, we want to see you 4 times in the year. But how do we create programs or more holistic stuff or more long-term stuff, follow-up that cultivates the new champions, the new generation? How many of us are training people and then we go to a site the following year and all those people we trained are no longer there? And it's like, that's kind of disheartening. We worked so hard on getting you really good, or we got you up to a level 2, you were super into it and super pumped, and then you got an offer from another industry to leave and you took it because of X, Y, and Z, better money, better offerings of time, lots of different factors. But I think we need to start to consider, what do we do to not just train, but cultivate people to stick around? How do we create new champions? How do you keep people in the field as much as we would love them to be in the field? We talk about how powerful the work is, but how do we actually justify that in the real world?
Yeah, there comes a time when the power of the work doesn't feed the cat. We draw people this because this is really powerful. You work with people, you see amazing things happen, but if we're not paying them enough to live, then they're not going to stay, no matter how powerful the experience is. So I want you to notice we've got 4 boxes up there, and some have been kind of themed, but what's missing? And it could be this. You don't even have to have anything in the box, but what is missing? If we're talking about training, we're talking about a lot of different things here. We're just opening this dialogue. What's missing from our thinking to this point? And feel free to just grab one of those black Post-its and type in what you think is missing. So now I want to take this back out. This is a little bit of meta thinking, and this is getting what Tom wants to get at. And what I want us to do is either move or create these black stickers under themes and directions. So you can just replicate one of the black stickers and move it over there. Or if you're noticing other themes, I want you to say, hey, I noticed this theme, and then put it in a black sticker. So say it first. What theme did you notice? Let everybody else hear what you're thinking, and then put a sticker up there. So now we're going to capture the process right now. You can replicate those ones that we just did, or you can create new ones. What themes and directions are you noticing? And also what's missing?
I'm so sorry, John. I got distracted. Can you repeat what we're doing?
Yeah, basically in this area of the themes and directions, what do you notice? You can either copy the black ones that we put over there, or there's another one. And this is where we're just consolidating our thought process. What do we got and what's missing? That make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Another minute or so What other themes are you seeing? Okay, another 30 seconds, maybe see if we can get, notice any other themes up there. And now's a good time to ask questions about what you mean. Are you making any connections? And again, is anything missing?
And John, I think I want to shift us a little bit. I'd like to hear more voices and use Mural to capture what we're saying. But I think I really want to hear what you guys are thinking out loud. And so what I might propose as a question right now is your opinion. What are the next steps? What do you think that we need to do? Is training important? Do we need to find some way to kind of qualify people? What's the next step? What are the next steps? What are the next things we do? What can we talk about when we get to ACT next week? So let's go free form. But as you come up with an idea, then could you put it on a sticky and slap it somewhere before we finish? So that the mural is clever and good, but we don't hear the voices quite so much. So what do you think we should do next? Where do you think we should go?
I'll start and just say that I get overwhelmed when I see this. I like the one that says a clear and agreed on definition of what training is and what a trainer does. What I'm thinking in my head is that what are the boundaries of our responsibilities? And could those be put into like competency areas and like a type of training? Because it feels like with the demands and training and responsibilities that are growing in the industry, that training could be for a facility, could be weeks. When you get into trauma-informed inclusion, various abilities, the technical, the facilitation, skills, there's so much missing here when I want to go detailed of what would be in those areas, those overarching areas. I don't know if that makes sense, but so a next step in my mind would be, what are modules under training? To kind of take pieces of the huge elephant that feels overwhelming. Just say, this is a competency area.
Well, and then you have to, I hear exactly what you're saying. And a big thing is that we want them fully trained after a session.
You're right. And I'm like that.
And you can't do that.
There.
And that's where the levels
Right.
come into play. You need to define after this first training,
Right.
what level of skill will they have? And that means what you need to define is what a beginner looks like, what a practitioner looks like, what a advanced looks like, what a master looks like for delivering training.
Right.
First of all, I mean, and then that all needs to go into, then you get into the training and curriculum design, which is for the content that you're supposed to deliver those same levels. And that's where stepping back and letting it get messy before it gets good. We try and jump to the elephant and eating the elephant in one bite,
Right.
as opposed to stepping back and say, all right, let's get clear about one or two things. And first is just, what do we mean? What does success look like for all these things?
So Jane, then you're saying, what are the trainer competencies and
Boundaries.
are they at different levels?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
That's
even when I think about trauma-informed care, like being really mindful of what I'm training facilitators in and what they're not for the things that are coming up for our clients that we work with.
Yeah, okay.
And
good.
and what level, what do they need to know to perform at the level that they're going to be assigned?
Right.
I
Let's-
think in other industries, they call that a scope of practice. And, you know, in the medical industry, it's really clear if you're a dermatologist, what your scope of practice is. If you're a physician assistant dermatologist, what your scope of practice is. If you're a nurse practitioner dermatologist, what your scope of practice is. And I think those definitions are going to be critically important. And I think what can play into that also is, are you talking about a PVM trainer who has a built-in, perhaps, company network to
Mhm.
help them know their lane and staff them appropriately? Or are you talking about an in-house trainer at an organization that may not have the competency to know what their scope of practice could be within their in-house training? And do they need guidance from either their vendor or standards to know that lane?
Well, and I pushing back a little bit, the in-house trainer, the company that is doing it knows their roles better than an outside provider. And there needs to be that negotiation of you don't know their practice, their business, or as well as they do. And coming in with the assumption that you know their world better than they do can get us all in trouble.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting the competency of being a good trainer, not knowing their business or their programs. Because
Well, as far as scope goes.
well, there's curriculum, like what are they trying to do with their clients? I don't pretend to be a therapist when I go work in a behavioral health center, but for them to actually think they know their challenge course better is up for debate around that. They didn't build it, they didn't design it. They may know how to use it or not. They certainly know their clients and their competency around behavioral health management and counseling. I'm not going to pretend to be a counselor, but they better seek out the PVM to know how to best operate that course.
What else are you guys thinking? What's coming to mind?
I'm also curious in trends. So I was trained to be a blank slate, a neutral party when I'm training and facilitating, and I've seen more and more where people, it's more your authentic self, sharing who you are in layers that I would have never shared, and probably, and I still kind of default to not doing that. And I'm curious about that. And I think there was a cluster of that I interpreted, an area of, would that be a competency or a conversation? I think of Phil all the time. I watch your things in terms of questioning best practices and what we have been trained and rethinking things. So I think there's an area of that I'm interested in that. If that, again, thinking out loud, but what are the what does a good facilitator look like? And are we representing the people that we're working with? In where, if we're trying to build and build our depth of facilitators and trainers.
Well, and Jane, you reminded me of something that I'm working on is what assumptions do I need to challenge? What do I think I know for sure that isn't so?
Yep. I don't know if that has a place in there, but these are all,
I think that's like a foundational piece that you brought up.
okay.
What else is people thinking?
Something I consider when we talk about competencies and we talk about credentialing and those kind of things is I'm on the mindset I'm for any form of credentialing, and partly because I think that's there's a slight flaw almost with the challenge course portfolio, where we start to dictate how many years and how many hours, as if that equates to competency. And I don't think that that's true. I think that you could have been doing this for 30 years wrong. So I think that when we talk about competency, I think it has to be like you were suggesting, Jane, there has to be this scope, this clear and also clear objective, non-subjective, objective competency, which is harder when it comes to facilitation. But I think that we have to be really cautious of, because I've been doing this so many years, therefore I'm a master. And I would love for us to consider, like, what are the skills, what are the things that we can do that someone new who's only done it a week actually can demonstrate these and be like, wow, this is a freaking cool trainer. And they've been doing it a week, and we can get past the, like, I've been doing this 20 years.
That's what I love about scuba diving, and the way that you advance through scuba diving is it's not one thing. It's, you have to go through the course, you have to demonstrate the skills, and you have to have the experience that shows that you can apply those skills in multiple situations. And you can't progress until you've got all those three things. And it makes it really, the only thing bad about scuba diving is that you don't have to renew your sea cards, but so that you don't know if the skills are sticking. But those three things to me are essential for any kind of certification or credentialing.
Maybe here's a question for people with, of the trainers that you see, the people that you train, what skills or competencies do you see that are often missing, whether it's an adventure park or a zip tour or facilitated? What's missing in the trainers that are out there? What do they not have that they should have?
Well, Tom, if I can jump in here, one of the things that your question just kind of started getting me thinking about is that when I train new facilitators, when I train new trainers, what I've seen over the years is that we have a tendency to train or facilitate the way we were trained. And I put in a comment box there about creating a learning environment that fits all your participants. And I've just seen way too many trainers say, well, you got to do it this way. Well, why? Well, because that's why I was trained. You got to tie this knot. Well, why? Because that's the knot I was trained. And I think an effective trainer has got to be able to be adaptive, to be flexible. One of my favorite sayings is, blessed are those who are flexible, they're less likely to get bent out of shape. So our trainings have to be, and our trainers have to be flexible. I think I agree with these conversations around what's an absolute and what's not, but there's got to be wiggle room in some of the absolutes too. So we've got 12 people on the screen here, and all 12 of us trained probably a little bit different because we were all trained differently. And how do we create that mindset of there's got to be more than one way to have an effective training, which means you have to have a very flexible trainer who can create that learning environment for the participants. And what we're trying to, that transfer of knowledge, that verification of skills, I think to a certain extent, verification of skills is, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's either they can tie a bowline on a bike with a backup or they can't. But how you go about tying that bowline, what kind of backup do you use, is where we as trainers have got to do a better job, in my opinion.
Well, and on this side of it, when you're talking about credentialing trainers, it's not as straightforward as tying a bowline on a bike. It's leading an effective discussion. It's even writing on the whiteboard. It's how do you create a good reflection opportunity? How do you sequence a topic in order to get the right place for the group that you have in front of you. And all that is really, you can describe what it looks like, and how you get there is going to be totally different.
But to your point, Dick, about you train the way you were taught, I think that almost, I don't know how many of us have had the opportunity to watch any of the other of us do any training. So when we think of like peer review or the opportunity to observe other people training, it's very unlikely you've seen any of us train unless you've actually been a participant or had the opportunity to become a participant of someone else training. And so almost I wonder if, like, you know, I had the joy of having Tom in a training recently with me, and I think that was done by himself. I almost wonder if as an industry, access money would be a struggle. So how do we make it so that it's possible for all of us at some point to be able to observe other people training and not have to come out of our own pocket or stuff to do so? But that would strengthen our training, just be observing other people training. We're very insulated sometimes. We do these kind of things and have these good conversations, but like we don't get to see each other train. So how can we expect to train any other than how we were taught? Or unless we're coming up with brand new stuff ourselves, but then we don't get to share it because no one sees it. So, you know, it's a little bit stuck in insulation.
Yeah, and also not only isolated from each other in the industry, but going outside of the challenge course industry and seeing quality training in other contexts. I was really humbled when I went into the corporate world, because I went in, I'm a facilitator and I design training, and I got all kinds of questions about what I do. And a lot of it didn't fit with my assumptions about what a trainer facilitator did. And so while I brought some really great stuff experientially to the game, I was also taught by some amazing trainers who had never even heard of experiential programs. And yet they were doing these high-end training and delivering on the expectations of the people who asked them to do the training. That was something that really humbled me.
You know, I think that when we look at the PVM accreditation, I think there's always been a big hole there, and that when we go do a review for another PVM, we spend hours looking at their paperwork, and we spend hours out looking on their climbing at their challenge courses and walking around, and we might watch an hour of some trainer delivering something. And I've always thought that, you know, there would be a way to do that. And I'm the whole master's degree thing. I took a workshop with Phil, which was awesome. And I took a workshop with another company, and I was very disappointed in the experience. And with the trainer, it felt more like they were just facilitating a program as opposed to teaching educators to deliver content. And so what I think might make a lot of sense for if there's a credential at some point for us, that part of our credentialing process, that once a year even, or once every 3 years, that we go as trainers and we take someone else's workshop, like I did with Phil, and we take notes and learn from them. We record those hours as training received as part of our re-credentialing as a trainer. And then we fill out a form for ACT for the PVM accreditation that goes towards that trainer, or even feedback for that trainer as part of their re-credentialing. I think that, you know, it's expensive. It costs me, you know, plane fare and all that stuff. But I think there's a way for us to really support each other a lot more. And I both experiences were very, very valuable. I learned in one case, a trainer who I felt like I was a participant. It was awesome. Another trainer that I was frustrated the entire time because I couldn't get a question answered and stuff. So I think there might be something there that we should all go take somebody else's training. And you're all welcome to come to mine anytime you want. So I'd love to I want to go to Synergo. I want to take one of your trainings. Rachel, I want to spend a week with you at some point. So it would be pretty cool. But
part of what would make that more affordable is doing a swap. Like if somebody comes to your training, you don't charge them for it, and you swap the feedback back and forth.
Yeah, I was thinking the feedback's a big piece to this, right? Right. I get great feedback from participants that don't know anything about training other than they didn't know how to do stuff. And then at the end of the training, they do. So to get peer feedback, I find very valuable.
I think there's something to in terms of as a trainer, how are you supported? Are you a solo entrepreneur consultant person? You know, I worked for 18 years at Project Adventure, and I had the great fortune to work multiple times with more than 20 or 25 really good trainers over the 18 years there. And that ability to have that kind of both partnership of delivery, but also feedback, and the opportunity to give feedback of people who then I was mentoring, really makes a big difference. And I wonder about trainers who don't have like someone who's writing a level 1 curriculum. They have to do it themselves. They have to deliver it themselves. Their only feedback is their participants. And then every 3 years, Tom or Paul shows up and kind of watches them do something and signs off on them. That to me seems really insulated. And so I think the size and scope of either a PVM's operations or a program's operations has a lot to do with the depth and ability of their facilitators and trainers.
Well, and I'm that isolated person. And so I've been in the last 2 years, I did almost 300 hours of training, most of it in Zooms and stuff, which is pretty awesome and stuff, but I am isolated. And so it's been great to go other places. I did a workshop at High Five where I presented for a day, and it was really neat to get feedback and questions. And I did some follow-up conversations and stuff. So it's, you got to seek it out, to get that kind of feedback you're looking for.
I'm suggesting that maybe that's a boundary for people also, meaning in whatever way we define what a credentialed appropriate trainer, that there's somehow, it isn't just what do they know and what's their experience, it's what's the framework and within which they're working, and how much do they have to seek out, or can they absorb it internally because they have a whole cadre of trainers and builders around them that this is a normal environment for them to be challenging their own assumptions and questions and methods.
I think that's probably why we're though seeing like folks like the Alliance coming together, because they're trying to fill that gap that larger orgs might have by having a collective group of people who support each other. And maybe that's what ACCT also needs to do, is create that kind of supported network for those smaller orgs, smaller trainer orgs, so that they have the supported structure. Like, unfortunately at High Five, we don't have a massive, it's 5 trainers, but still 5 people to bounce ideas off. So, and small orgs don't have that opportunity, so they reach out to other orgs. But how can ACCT help facilitate that process or make that easier for smaller orgs to be able to collaborate or support each other?
I'm not sure ACCT will, but Dick and I started something in, was it 2001? And we, just a bunch of people, and we'd meet, once a year and stuff like that. Scott Andrews, Sarah O is in it, a few other people. Scott Conant was part of that group. And so we just, ACT does so much. I think we may need to, do some things for ourselves to get together, and we could certainly organize that. I'd love it. I'm in. What do you think? What's next? What do we need to do next? Maybe what should we? It's 2:41 here. What do you think about what should we use the time at ACCT to discuss? What do you think? What are some ideas that we could use that time for?
One of the things that have been going through my mind as I've been listening to this discussion is that a lot of it is dependent on there being a base level of trust, I think, among the people who are committed to it. So my question then being, how do you bring together all of these different people with all these different interests and develop that basic level sense of trust.
You know, at the trainers lab, Alex and Kevin were there a bunch and stuff. And what I saw was a lot of what we defined was imposter syndrome. Quietly on the side, people would say, well, I don't want to have the wrong answer. Or I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing. And the fact is that until we compare each other, we don't really, none of us really know what we're really doing and if we're really on the track, on the same page and stuff. But so I think this group yesterday and today, I think the people who showed up yesterday and today have a basic level of trust, that are willing to show up and just talk and hear each other.
And that whole imposter syndrome thing is actually healthy because it keeps us humble. And the more dangerous is the Dunning-Kruger effect, where we think we're far more competent than we are. And my fear of Dunning-Kruger is what do I really know? I don't really know that. I'm not, and so that the humility that comes with being the imposter syndrome, but it creates this opportunity where you cherish being wrong. If you haven't been wrong in this past year, you haven't grown. And so discovering those places where we need to grow means that we need to face where our assumptions are stale. That's heavy on my mind right now because that's one of my personal development themes for this year is finding those things that I know for sure that ain't so, because that means I'm going to grow. And I see a lot of both in the training world. And sometimes it's total Dunning-Kruger. They're up in front of the room and they're talking about stuff that they really don't have a clue about. But then you get these great, amazing trainers who step in humbly because they know that this is a huge field. And we're just scratching the surface of what we're talking about. That's why it's so intimidating, is because the more you know about, the bigger this whole world gets.
Hey, maybe a thing to do right now, we've got about 15 minutes left, and I'm really enjoying hearing the voices. What if we do a sounding now, and we ask everybody to just think for a couple of minutes? And I'd like, John has a question down here, but let's do it out loud. What do you, John?
Can I offer a process here, Tom?
Yeah, as long as we do it with a sounding, I want to just hear.
Well, yeah, what I was going to say is that what you're asking for is some reflection first, and then we do a sounding afterwards.
Mhm.
And the question that I like to ask is, what has become clear through this process? So, and again, this is one of these things where you can just reflect on the question. If you want to post it down in, there's a little square down here that you can post it into. But again, use that as a reflection prompt. And if you want to write it out, great. But let's just take, we'll take 2 minutes where you can type but basically think about and reflect on this process. We've been here for an hour and 45 minutes. What has become clear to you through answering the 5 questions, through clumping and clustering, from finding the themes, from talking about what we're discovering here? What has become clear? And I'll give a little 2-minute warning here, and just take 2 minutes to reflect on that. If you want to post. If not, we're going to talk about this in 2 minutes.
And then we're going to do a sounding where you get to kind of enunciate a little bit those thoughts.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I need to release them. there's our 2 minutes. And want to pass it back to Tom to kind of lead the sounding here. So my guess is you're going to want him to raise hand and we can call and
We do all that stuff. So you can read what's on your card, you can say what's on your mind. But you know, as a result of our time together and your experience in general, what is your, you know, closing statement for this circle, possibly pointing us towards next week? What's clear to you now? What do we need? Where do we need to go? What's next? What do you think needs to happen for trainers at this point? So go ahead and raise your hand. And I am going to hold myself off until closer to the end. I've been thinking about this for 21 years, so I'm going to wait just a little bit. Phil, you ready?
Ready. So first, I'm glad to see familiar faces, and I always find it a little bit of a shame that sometimes we do this so infrequently, see the same faces. I'm like, yeah, God, good to see people again. So I'm excited to see people in person next week. And I think for me, something I'm trying to be far more intentional about is continuous connection with other trainers outside of those who are already in my organization. I think there's a benefit to working at High Five in that I have a collection of great trainers around me, but I think as well, it holds me back from reaching out to other trainers and other who work in other orgs. So I'm going to endeavor to do that more this year.
Cool. Thanks, Phil. Kevin?
Awesome. Sweet. I think to kind of piggyback on what Phil just said right there, one thing that just comes to mind is, again, that space for trainers. And Tom, I loved coming out to ATL. I think, you know, the few years that we had that in person was fantastic. I even think doing it over Zoom, it's kind of provided this space for us as well. So I think space for trainers, for us to continue to connect and kind of hear different methodologies and how it works for folks is a really important thing. And I think keeping that door open for us professionally, as well as a lot of the in-house trainers that are up and coming, I think that starts really bringing into the fold a lot of the new folks and new generations that are coming up, and hopefully, again, keeping them in the industry for some time. From today's conversation, I wrote down just a couple other things. Again, really focusing and differentiating between like fundamental focuses of like what are the fundamentals that we're doing versus generational knowledge or generational training and how it gets passed down the line. So just kind of differentiating between the two right there. A true criteria that again goes beyond the hours of experience or hours in our portfolio. What are the actual tangible things that we're seeing from an educator or a trainer that makes them an effective trainer? And then again, a little bit, I believe Chris was saying it, just the pathways of focus, you know, challenge course driven, aerial adventure park and monitoring versus your zip canopy tour and what might come about from there. So those were just some of the takeaways I've been kind of taken from the past 2 days. So yeah.
Nice. Thanks, Kevin. Chris?
I wrote down on a sticky, you know, all the right people showed up. There are probably more right people that need to be encouraged to be here. I tend to find that it's rare for the wrong person to show up in these kinds of things, so that's always good. One of the takeaways that I think is worth discussing next week is how does this process, what you've done, Tom, to sort of generate this interest, this dialogue, how does that integrate with ACCT's process and need around a product or a process of credentialing? I don't know what is driving on the ACCT end, and how what we're doing can intersect with that in a way that whatever gets generated here doesn't get either have to be reproduced there and take more time, or gets completely forgotten or not utilized. So.
Cool. Thanks, Chris. And will you be at ACT?
I won't be. I'll be at the PVM symposium virtually.
Okay. All right. Okay, cool. We'll miss you. So, Paul?
Yeah, for me, my takeaways is, continuing to network. When I started out in the field, that's kind of how I got where I am today, is hearing other people's experiences, learning from them, finding people that do things differently than me, helped me to grow. And as I've become a trainer and work for PVMs, sometimes there's a little bit of that competition piece. And so to be able to step back and go, okay, we all care about training people correctly, helps kind of take down that wall that maybe I've put up, and I'm not one for putting up walls. So I appreciate our time in these dialogues.
Thanks, Paul. Dick?
Yes, just real quick. I am always, as always, humbled by the wisdom in the room. Every time we get in the meetings like this, whether it be through the ATL, the NCCPS, ACT, it's just, it's humbling. But what I would like to challenge this group to do is that I served as a member of the Trainer Credentialing Task Force 2 years ago, and we've had a lot of conversation around this, and we've turned our report in, and it's ginning through the process at ACC. So this is not all brand new. It really is something that the industry has been working on. But on Friday afternoon at the ACCT, I am chairman of the QCP task force. And part of that piece is, what are the qualifications for a course practitioner on training, and would like to have people come. It's 4:30 Friday afternoon. I'm not sure where it is, but somewhere, and give us your input and thought, because we are going to be doing a sounding like this on what you think a trainer ought to have, what they ought to be able to do, what, and it's not going to be centered around hours. 280 hours and poof, you're a qualified trainer. Totally disagree with that, and the task force totally agrees with that. So we're trying to come up with, what should a trainer, along with inspectors and builders and operators and all that kind of fun stuff, what should they be able to do? Not how many hours do they have, because 280 hours is a bad trainer, still a bad trainer. So come and give us share your wisdom with us, and I look forward to seeing everybody at the ACCT, where we can continue this conversation. I think part of this process is building that esprit de corps around the trainers, and that we can drop that facade and be open and vulnerable and share and be transparent, like we all talk about doing, but it takes time to get there. So thank you, Tom, for the opportunity to share.
Thanks, Dick. I had a little 9-year-old shenanigans going on here, so I'm sorry to draw my attention away from you here. So, Alex?
Yeah. So I wrote down, what I wrote was, training is expensive and time consuming, and clients are reluctant to spend the money to get their staff trained. Training trainers is even more expensive and time consuming. And that's kind of something that I've thought many times before, but especially in the conversation just now, I'm just thinking about, like, how do we figure out the funding for all of the cool things that we want to do, being able to go around to other people's trainings and see what's going on, and share knowledge and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, I think that, we stand there and we verify skills of the trainees that we work with, the people who are working with participants out on the course. How do we get to do that without it costing a fortune, and therefore being impractical with trainers as a whole? I wrote down the QCP thing. Thank you, Dick, for already mentioning that. And then I also just, it didn't come up today, but it came up yesterday. I felt like it did. The question of kind of vendor versus course or versus organization. And I'm going to speak entirely for myself. I don't think of it this question as being vendors versus the course provide, like the courses or organizations that are out there providing things. I think it's a collaborative thing. I think it's a partnership thing. And that's definitely how we as an organization are looking at it. It's not like I'm coming in to tell you, what you need to know. I do think that there's a good amount that a lot of organizations already know about their course. And so, yeah, I'm just like interested in getting rid of the myth that it has to be this us versus them kind of a mentality, but instead, how can we work together and collaborate and just do things better for the good of the whole of the industry.
Cool, thank you. Anyone else?
The post-it note that I put up there had to do with, I do a lot of quality assessments of programs, and it popped into my mind of, would it be possible to create an assessment tool that is about quality, and observational? Again, that's the challenge is getting to and finding time and that stuff, but maybe recording ourselves, training, and then we have this assessment tool that's agreed upon in areas of competencies and what a ranking of a 1, 3, or 5 would look like, to give it some kind of quantitative quality for coaching purposes, supportive purposes, not to injure people in a way, but have that tool again, see what and use it for coaching.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? We're coming right up on wind up here. And with the sounding, no one has to speak. We just make time for you to speak if you choose to. Who's going to be at ACT next week? Just a show of real hands, non-virtual hands. Okay, cool. So, well, I'm John. I'm going to have to go pretty quick here. We've got some school drama, some fairly unpleasant school drama going that we're in the midst of. So I'm going to have to go pretty quick. But I guess I would say that I really appreciate everybody coming. That John will send a follow-up with the mural for you to be able to access, as well as the recording. And then Dick, if you can remind us at the PVM thing about the QC thing, because that certainly fits right in with this. And then if you have thoughts about the 2 meetings on Friday and Saturday, I have some ideas of how to approach those, a couple of essential questions I think would be really good for us to just sit down and work. I'm going to kind of study this a little bit and see if I can cook up a couple to offer as essential questions for us to discuss in that situation. So, but it is 3 o'clock. We've had a chance to sound. Anyone final thing before we go to the after party? I'll be right there. So I've got to go. So John, I'm going to sign off. John, you've got the helm here, and I'll see most of you next week.